Hello guys, I'm Kerry from Kerry Tries It, and in this video I'm gonna watch man survives 72 hours in sunken ship.
On the 26th
I
of May
think that's
2013, the
something
Gascon 4
adventure.
sank in rough seas. A saturation dive team on the Toucan support vessel were called in to retrieve the bodies of the 12 sailors on board. What they didn't know is that one man survived trapped in an air pocket in the submerged vessel, 100 feet below the waterline.
How could he survive?
On the 26th of May 2013, there are 6
he's
saturation divers working on board the Toucan. The Toucan is a dive support vessel which is chartered by a company called West African Ventures. The divers are laying oil pipes at a depth of around 70 meters or 230 feet when the call comes in. Some 65 nautical miles from their position, a tugboat, the Gascon 4, which is another vessel operated by West African Ventures, has capsized and sunk. West African Ventures contacts Colby Verrett, the dive supervisor on the Toucan, and asks him and his team to recover the bodies of the 12 men on board. The first problem is that the divers are under pressure to dive at 230 feet, and the Gascon 4 has sunk in 100 feet of water or 30 meters. They can't simply ascend to 100 feet because their bodies have absorbed nitrogen and helium equivalent to the working pressure. It'll take almost 20 hours for them to safely ascend to 100 feet and allow the excess helium and nitrogen to escape from their bodies. The sea has been whipped up by the same storm that has sunk the Gascon 4, and so it'll be slow going to get to the accident site. In fact, it'll take around 17 hours to get there at a speed of around 4 knots or nautical miles per hour. You and I can walk about as fast as this boat will travel in the stormy conditions. Luckily, the sailing time to the location of the sunken barge will take around the same amount of time as the decompression. And so they secure their work site, bring the dive bell on deck and attach it to the habitat, then set sail.
Mayday, mayday, mayday. The Gascon 4 tugboat has capsized and is sinking. She has 12 crew on board. The location is 14 miles.
At around 0500 on the morning of the 26th of May 2013, Harrison Okene, the cook on board the Gascon 4, gets up to make breakfast for the crew. He unlocks his cabin door and makes his way to the bathroom. The sea's rough, and so Harrison braces himself, when all of a sudden the boat is slammed by a wave that's far larger than the other waves rolling through. The force of the wave rolls the tugboat, and as it falls off the crest of the wave, it crashes into the sea with such force that it cracks the hull of the boat and water immediately rushes in. Harrison rips open the door and rushes towards the emergency escape hatch, where 3 of his crew members are already trying to escape. Before he gets there, water rushes in and fills the passageway, swallowing the other 3 crew members and washing them away. The tugboat Gascon 4 has been hit by a rogue wave in rough seas. It immediately capsizes and sinks. She's one of 3 tugs towing an oil tanker. Their mission is to stabilize the oil tanker in the rough seas. One of the ships she's sailing with sends out a distress call on Channel 16. Channel 16 is the radio channel that all ships monitor. If something happens at sea, you put out a distress call on Channel 16, and you know that all ships are listening to the same channel, so they'll pick up your call for help. The Gascon 4 sinks so quickly that her captain isn't able to make a distress call himself. The location of this accident is about 14 nautical miles off the coast of Nigeria, and a helicopter is immediately dispatched to search for survivors. By the end of the day, on the 26th of May, no bodies have been found, and the search for survivors is cancelled. West African Ventures now contacts one of the ships in their fleet,
but how did she survive
Toucan,
if they
to request
cancelled?
that its divers locate the sunken vessel and search for bodies. The Toucan arrives on the scene late.
That's crazy. Wow, that's so scary.
Late in the day on the 27th of May. The sea has calmed and they are able to start their search. They have the coordinates for where the Gascon 4 sank, but they still have to find her on the sea floor. The ocean currents have pushed her off her last known surface location. The Toucan has 6 divers, which they split into 2 teams who work around the clock. They send a dive bell down to 30 meters or 100 feet. One diver remains in the dive bell to provide support and 2 divers enter the water. After finding the Jascon 4, which is lying upside down in the sand at 30 meters, the divers now have to find a way into the sunken ship. The Nigerian coastline is notorious for pirates, and so it's standard protocol to secure and lock all hatches in the ship and all internal doors. That means the divers have to break into the Jascon 4. The divers are underwater engineers, and so they're equipped with tools and underwater welding torches that'll help them break the latches and gain entry. After opening an exterior hatch, they now have to start the dangerous task of entering the ship and searching from cabin to cabin. The Jascon 4 is upside down and resting precariously on its masthead. The masthead is the uppermost section of the ship that holds the ship's radio beacon and its flags. It's not a structural support, but now it's holding the weight of the vessel, which makes it unstable. If it gives way while a diver's inside, he could be trapped or crushed as it collapses. One diver waits outside to help feed the umbilical cord into the wreck, while one diver penetrates the wreck to search for bodies. The umbilical is a set of pipes that feeds gas to the divers and cables for two-way communication with the ship and other divers. The search for bodies is a slow process. The visibility in the water is quite low at times, and so they have to feel their way around the wreck. It's an unfamiliar ship that's upside down, and they have to keep
and
their
just
orientation
imagine
in mind
someone
as they work
died,
their way
have been
through
in
the
the water
vessel.
for a long
Hour
time
after
and they're
hour,
just
they work
starting.
tirelessly. Even though they expect to find dead bodies, it's still a spine-tingling experience to bump into a dead body floating in the murky water. By the afternoon of the 28th of May, 2 days after the boat sank, the dive crew has extracted 4 bodies. The dive supervisor, Colby Verrett, is directing his South African dive crew. In the bell is Andre Erasmus. In the water are divers Daryl Oosthuizen, who's feeding the umbilical cord to Nico van Heerden, who's about to enter the Jascon 4. The divers are breathing a special gas mixture which is made up of oxygen and nitrogen, similar to the air we breathe, and they've added helium into the mix. This is called trimix, which is common for saturation divers. At depths below 20 meters or 66 feet, nitrogen starts to have a narcotic effect, which divers refer to as the martini effect. The deeper you go, the more drunk you get. Nitrogen is denser than helium, and so helium flows into and out of your body tissue a little more easily than nitrogen and reduces the effects of nitrogen narcosis. But because helium is not as dense as nitrogen, it also conducts heat away from your body tissue more readily than nitrogen. That's why when you breathe helium from a balloon, your voice becomes high-pitched. The helium is cooling your larynx, which changes the pitch of your voice. And so these divers sound like chipmunks. Nico heads into the wreck. He orientates himself and makes his way down the passageway. He enters the officers' quarters towards the bow of the ship. In the gloomy water, Nico sees a hand. A shiver runs down his spine. He calmly reaches over to pull the body towards him so that he can take it out of the ship and bring it back to the surface. But then his heart
So
skips
he was
a beat
really
when the hand grasps his as
alive?
if the body has come back to life. Nico is startled but quickly regains his composure. If you go and research this story, you'll see some reports that Harrison heard them coming and banged on the boat to let them know he was inside. I don't believe the divers heard his message. When Nico found him, he and Colby, the dive supervisor, are equally surprised, and you can even hear Colby say,
Fucking hell, I don't know what we're gonna do.
if they'd known there was someone alive inside, they would have already started to plan for a rescue, and they would have known what they were going to do, or at least be preparing a plan. Nico can see the survivor is relieved to see him. He's equally impressed that the guy is maintaining his composure. That composure kept him alive for 2 days in a bubble of air in a sunken ship 100 feet below the waterline. We now know that survivor is Harrison Okene, who survived for 63 hours in his air bubble. During that time, he's fashioned a small raft to hold himself above the water, listened to what he could only assume were his colleagues being eaten by fish or sharks, and prayed for his life to be saved. In order to understand the problems of bringing him out, you need to break the problems down into short-term and long-term. Short-term is the next few hours and long-term is the next 3 days. The most immediate problem facing Harrison is that his air pocket is slowly filling with carbon dioxide with every breath he exhales. Carbon dioxide will poison and kill him before he runs out of oxygen. The effects of carbon dioxide at 100 feet are even more pronounced than they are at the surface. The solution is to add breathing gas to the air pocket, but this creates two problems. The first problem is the gas mixture the divers are using is Trimix, which has helium, and they aren't sure if it's okay for Harrison to start breathing this straight away. The divers have some time to acclimatize to the helium as they descend, but Harrison's already at depth. After consulting with a hyperbaric doctor who specializes in medicine under pressure, they decide the risk is very low. Harrison would already have absorbed nitrogen equal to the surrounding water pressure. In effect, he's already a saturation diver. Any helium his body tissue could absorb would have to replace the nitrogen that his body has already absorbed, which would be a slow process no different from the divers descending slowly. The next problem is getting a gas mixture to Harrison. They've got two choices. Nico can purge gas from his helmet to freshen the air pocket.
That's
This would increase the
really
amount of
so
oxygen in the air
interesting.
pocket and effectively
He's so lucky that he
reduce the
survived.
percentage of carbon dioxide. That sounds simple enough, but the divers have to be careful. The ship's already resting on its masthead, which
Yeah,
makes
like
it
from one
unstable to
point
begin
you're
with.
thinking,
If they
just
simply
take him
purge
out.
gas into the air pocket, they're increasing the buoyancy of the ship. It's like inflating a balloon underwater. The ship starts to float, which will destabilize it, and they risk the ship rolling onto its side and possibly trapping Nico. And the air that's keeping Harrison alive could escape and he drowns before they have a chance to extract him. They're already preparing a dive helmet in the bell to bring to Harrison, but the helmet is heavy. It's called a Kirby Morgan dive helmet. Once Harrison has the helmet on, he'll have a breathing supply, but he can't hold his head above water for long. Once he's in the water, he won't feel the weight of the mask. But once he has it on, it's so heavy he needs to go into the water. He can't sit on his makeshift raft with this heavy piece of equipment. But the water's cold. It's not North Sea cold, but Harrison's been trapped for 60-odd hours and he's already cold, so he can't waste time in the cold water waiting for them to make a plan. So the helmet needs to go on when they're ready to extract him and not before, which means Nico needs to purge gas into the air pocket, enough to revitalize the air supply, but not so much that it causes the boat to become unstable. Nico also brings a bottle of water to Harrison so he can rehydrate. He's been trapped for days without food and water. The longer term problem is that they can't simply bring Harrison up to the surface. Harrison's been trapped in an air pocket at 100 feet under pressure. The depth he's at means he has 4 times as much pressure as at the surface. If you go diving and breathe compressed air, the nitrogen in that air is compressed. The compressed nitrogen is absorbed into your body. We all have nitrogen in our body. That's normal. But when you go diving, your body absorbs more nitrogen. For recreational divers, they only absorb a little bit so they don't have to decompress. Saturation divers absorb nitrogen until the pressure inside their body reaches the same pressure for the depth they're at. Their body is saturated. I'm saying nitrogen, but for this purpose, nitrogen and helium act in the same way. Because Harrison's been under pressure for more than 2 days, his body is saturated with nitrogen, and if he goes directly to the surface, he will get decompression sickness, also known as the bends. That means he needs to come up slowly and decompress over 3 days. And that's precisely what the hyperbaric doctor suggests.
They're gonna keep
It
him
really
in the
is lucky
water.
that Harrison has a saturation diving crew with a dive bell performing this rescue. If he had been found by divers on a conventional scuba system, he'd be dead by the time he got to the surface. The only reason a rescue is possible is because of the dive bell and saturation habitat on board the Levesque Toucan. Nico helps Harrison put on the Kirby Morgan dive helmet. He then maneuvers Harrison through the passageway of the Jascon 4. From there, Nico and Daryl bring him to the dive bell. The dive bell is sealed to maintain the same pressure, and Harrison is brought to the deck of the Levesque Toucan where he will stay for the next 3 days in a decompression chamber. Over the next 3 days, Nico stays at his side. He feeds Harrison, administers medicine as prescribed by the hyperbaric doctor, changes his bed linen, and nurses him back to health, while the pressure is slowly released and his body is able to adjust to the surface pressure. After Harrison's decompression is complete,
Crazy.
a helicopter flies him back to land, and Nico goes back into the chamber so that he can get back to his job, installing oil pipes at 230 feet. After his ordeal, Harrison swore he'd never go near the ocean again. But he went on to become a commercial diver and says he loves being underwater.
Life doesn't teach us anything. Okay, that was very fun and fascinating. I'm very happy that this guy survived, and that's so interesting how our body adjusted to conditions that's around us. If you love this video, please write me in comments, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and support me in Patreon. Then my buy me a coffee. Here the link for Amazon wishlist, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye, guys.